This is 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're hearing my voice, that means the signal's still holding. That means someone's still out there. I'm Jordan Hale, and I didn't think I'd be back on the air like this. Not today. Not with everything that's been happening. But the message came through about 15 minutes ago. The one that broke through every feed, hijacked every station, even cut off the damn emergency test signal. It wasn't a test. It was the beginning. I'm going to play the first few seconds again, because I recorded it. I don't know how long they'll let it sit on the airwaves before it gets scrubbed, but I'll loop it back. Listen carefully. This is your president. As of today, we are activating Phase 1 of the National Verification Initiative. This is not a drill. Your unified identity chip appointments will be scheduled at local FEMA distribution centers. This action ensures safety and security for all verified citizens. Please remain calm. That's all we got before the line went dead. Just those words. Calm, measured. Like it was a snow day. Phones started lighting up right after. Landlines, satellite. Even my shortwave buzzed once. That hasn't happened in a year. Someone called it the mark. Just like that. No hesitation. No explanation. Like they already knew. Now look, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just a guy with a microphone, a generator, and a half-frozen box of granola bars. But I'll tell you this. When people start showing up with needles and wires, and they're telling you it's for your safety, you better start asking what they really mean by safe. I've got 3 messages sitting in my inbox already. One from a nurse upstate, one from a driver stuck on the I-70 corridor, and one from a guy, I swear to God, he sounded like he was broadcasting from a basement bunker somewhere under Capitol Hill. But we'll get to that. Let's start at the top. At 3:17 p.m. Eastern Time, the emergency broadcast system overrode every major network with that announcement. No warning, no buildup, just the words unified identity chip and verified citizens. FEMA centers were already prepped, which means this wasn't a response. It was a rollout. And people are already lining up. Some are scared, most are confused, and a few are real damn sure this was always coming, that this was written somewhere, in the fine print, in the footnotes of the future. One listener wrote in earlier last week, said his local grocery store was testing palm scanners for checkout speed. Said he was told it would link to his state-issued ID. That was in Kansas. Another woman from Portland said the local clinic turned her away when she brought in her old Medicaid card. Said it wasn't compatible with the new verification system. That was 5 days ago. How long has this been running in the background while we were busy arguing about everything else? I'll keep this line open for as long as I can. This station runs off backup power. Solar, mostly. And an old propane rig I rigged together with duct tape and a prayer. You're not going to get answers from the networks anymore. They're all echoing the same headline. Federal Verification Initiative begins. No cause for alarm. No cause for alarm? We've already got reports coming in from Detroit and Atlanta. Armed vehicles posted outside federal buildings, checkpoints springing up across state lines, banks running temporary identity sync messages across their apps. No chip, no access, no chip, no funds. And it's only been an hour. We'll keep taking calls, keep passing along what we hear. But if you're listening, if you still have power or signal or hell, even a battery-powered transistor, just know this. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And this isn't just some glitch in the system. This was planned. This was waiting. You're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I'm Jordan Hale, and it's been just under 2 hours since the announcement, since the unified identity chip became not a rumor, not a fringe theory, but something real, something enforced. The board's lighting up, which means some of you still have cell service, or landlines maybe, and some of you, God bless you, are still running ham or shortwave rigs out in the sticks. I'm going to take a few of these live. We're doing this raw, no delay. If the lines go dead or someone's cut off, that's just how things are now. First caller, you're on the air. Go ahead. This is Luann. I'm a nurse at a hospital just outside Denver. They told us to start scanning patients. Anyone without the chip? Turned away. Even the regulars, people I've known for years. I watched a diabetic woman collapse in the parking lot because she couldn't get insulin. Security told me not to interfere. They were federal. She was crying by the time I asked her to hang up. Said she couldn't stay on the line long. Said they were monitoring staff communications now. Monitoring everything. Second caller. Go ahead. Name's Carter. I'm a long-haul driver. Got stuck at a checkpoint between Ohio and Indiana. They scanned my ID, didn't match their system, wasn't chipped. They told me I had 2 options, detour back or get verified at the mobile unit. I said no. They pulled me out of the cab, guns drawn, didn't even blink. That was 4 hours ago. I'm hiding in a drainage culvert right now. The rig's gone. Don't know where they took it. I don't know what to tell these people except keep moving if you can. Hide if you can't. And for God's sake, don't go near a FEMA site unless you know exactly what you're walking into. Third caller. This one's different. Line came in from a private relay. Encrypted. Took me a minute to unscramble it. This is Pastor Ron, broadcasting from an old transmitter just outside Austin. If you're hearing this, listen close. This is prophecy. Plain and simple. You can call it tech, you can call it security, but in the book of Revelation, there's a mark, and it isn't freedom. You can't buy, you can't sell, you can't live without it. And that's not salvation, that's slavery. He read a passage, straight from memory. His voice never shook, and I've got chills I can't shake. I don't care if you believe in scripture or not. Something about this doesn't feel like progress. It feels like a trap. They call it unified identity. But you and I both know, unity never starts with force. Let's talk about the cities. DC is already under lockdown. I've got confirmation from 2 separate sources, military checkpoints in all quadrants. They're running facial scans, scanning wristbands, holding anyone who refuses. In New York, bridges are sealed. Only verified citizens allowed in or out. The subways, shut down. Transit lines, frozen. You'd think we were watching a foreign invasion. But there are no missiles, no smoke, just silence and screens and people being pulled off buses like they're threats. Chicago? Riots outside a verification center on the south side. Videos were up for 20 minutes before they vanished. Every upload pulled. Comments disabled. Accounts deleted. The last clip I saw was of a teenager yelling into the camera, "Don't let them scan you. Don't let them tag you like cattle." Then the screen went black. We've got reports of bank accounts being frozen, debit cards declining, people with money in the system, locked out. No warning. Just a message. Account verification pending. Pending what? Pending a chip? And if that's the price of access, what happens to the rest of us? No chip, no food, no chip, no gas, no chip, no rent, no chip, no life. I'm watching the world divide in real time, not by class or race or belief. By one thing, submission. And it's not just about security, it's control. Control over where you go, what you buy, who you talk to, even how long you're allowed to speak on air before someone tries to shut it down. I've got a message here. Shortwave intercept. The metadata traces back to a private defense contractor based out of Maryland. It's a transcript. I don't know if it's real, but I'll read it anyway. Priority 1, assets confirmed implanted. Unauthorized nodes being geotagged for escalation. Behavior mapping initiated. Tell me what that sounds like to you. Sounds like war. Sounds like they've already drawn the lines. And we're not even 3 hours in. This is Jordan Hale, holding this mic as long as they'll let me. Broadcasting from a radio tower that's been patched more times than I can count. To anyone still listening, stay off the main roads, stay out of the cities, and stay human. You are not a number. You are not a node. You are not a line of code to be toggled on and off. You're alive, and you're still free. For now. You're still locked into 99.3 FM, the last frequency. This is Jordan Hale, and it's officially been 3 hours since the signal went live. If you're just joining in, you missed the president's voice, not the press secretary, not some emergency coordinator, the president himself, calm as a sunset, delivered like a bedtime story. They're calling it Phase 1. People are still trying to make sense of what it means, but out here, off the grid, we're already watching the pieces fall into place. And the picture they're forming, it's not peace, it's control. I'm getting new reports every few minutes. I'll do my best to relay what I can before the next surge hits. Let's start in California. Los Angeles is locked. Not stay home if you can, locked. I mean, the highways are barricaded, the airports are empty, and the National Guard is lining the freeway like they're waiting for something to come down from the sky. Someone in Echo Park messaged me through a sideband relay. They said drones started flying overhead around 5 a.m. Not surveillance drones. These were heavier, marked with federal tags. They've been dropping small crates on rooftops. What's inside? Verification kits. You open the crate, you're expected to scan in. If you don't, you get flagged. That's the word being passed around. Flagged. Flagged means watched. Flagged means listed. Flagged means you've got about 24 hours before someone knocks on your door with a question and a needle. We've been conditioned to think warnings come with sirens. But this is quieter, cleaner. You just disappear. I've heard from people trying to get out of Seattle. They say every ferry has been grounded. Gas stations, shut off, pumps sealed. Unless you've got the chip, you're not fueling up. You're not getting groceries. You're not even buying a bus ticket. And in DC, people aren't talking anymore. They're whispering. Through masks, behind locked doors, like it's 1942 and the walls have ears. Because maybe now, they really do. I want to read something. Came in on a handwritten letter delivered by hand courier just before sundown. The woman who dropped it off wouldn't stay. She just slid it under the door and vanished down the road. I don't know her name, but I'll read her words. My brother worked for a telecom contractor, one of the big ones. Back in January, he told me they were installing nodes disguised as weather monitors. He said they didn't log storm data. They logged people, movement, behavior, conversations if they were close enough. I told him to quit. He said it was too late. They'd signed contracts. They'd signed everything away. And then at the bottom, scribbled in pen, "He disappeared last Tuesday. No goodbye. Just gone." I don't think he was the only one. You can call it conspiracy, but when the streets are empty and your neighbor's door is left swinging open in the wind, sometimes conspiracy feels a lot like truth. I've been told they've started marking buildings now. Green circle if the occupants are verified. Red X if they aren't. A woman from Tulsa said her family's front porch was painted last night. She watched them do it from under the floorboards. Said her father held her hand the whole time. Didn't say a word. What happens to the Red X houses? We're going to find out. Probably sooner than we want to. And still, through all this, I get messages. Quiet ones. From people I didn't expect to hear from again. There's talk of enclaves, off-grid spots deep in the woods, in the mountains, sometimes even in the belly of the cities. They call themselves many things. The Unverified, the Last Handshake, the 15th Tribe. It doesn't matter what name they use. What matters is this: they haven't given in. They're building new ways to live. Trading offline, sharing water, food, heat, old world skills, paper maps, AM frequencies. They're not waiting for help from above, because they know what's coming down from above isn't help. Here's something new. A man claiming to be an ex-NSA analyst sent in a voice file. Said he cracked part of the system's comms protocol. Said he found a series of tags associated with implanted users. One of the codes translates to something like Behavioral Defiance Index. He said the chip isn't just for ID, it's for ranking, measuring your thoughts, your purchases, your associations, and if you don't align, you get flagged. Again, he didn't say where he was calling from, but I heard wind turbines in the background. Could be Utah, could be Wyoming. If you're out there, whoever you are, thank you for sending it. I'll keep the signal moving. Before I go to break, scratch that. We don't do breaks anymore. I want to say something to anyone still on the fence. You might be thinking it's easier just to sign up. Get scanned. Get your groceries. Get your life back. But ask yourself, if the system can take it away this fast, was it ever really yours? Don't trade your soul for rations. Don't trade your freedom for convenience. And whatever you do, don't take the mark. This is Jordan Hale. Still breathing, still broadcasting, still free. And I'll keep speaking until they take the mic from my hands. Stay with me, because I swear to you, this is only the beginning. You're still tuned to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I'm Jordan Hale. 4 hours. That's how long it's been since the president's message cut across every channel in this country. It's strange, isn't it? How quickly a country can change when enough people stop asking questions. A few hours ago, we were still pretending everything was fine. Now the system's showing its teeth. But here's the thing about people. They don't all break the same way. Some bend, some run, and some start fighting back. I got a call about 20 minutes ago. Came through a ham relay bouncing off 3 towers across the Rockies. Took a while to clean the signal, but the voice came through clear. Man said he used to work cyber ops for a federal agency. Didn't say which one. Didn't have to. He said this chip, it's not just a tracker, it's a switch. They're calling it Smart ID, but it's got layers, biometric keying, behavior monitoring, stimulus response mapping. It doesn't just verify who you are, It predicts what you'll do. You ever wonder why so much of our world moved to digital only over the last few years? Why paper cash dried up? Why physical access cards were replaced with QR codes and scans? It was all dry runs. It was conditioning. And now the chip is just the final lock. He said once you're inside the system, the parameters update silently. They can restrict access without a single word. One day, you can walk into a store. The next day, you're flagged for buying too much canned food or logging too many hours on an encrypted browser. That's not security. That's control dressed like convenience. But it's not all bad news. Not tonight. Because I'm starting to hear from people who aren't waiting for permission to resist. They're out there. Old cabins deep in the Ozarks, outposts tucked into forgotten corners of Idaho, desert communes in New Mexico where the grid never reached. One man, Jacob, called in from Arizona. Said they've started calling their place Refuge 9. No net, no cell towers, no biometric locks, just tools, seeds, wood stoves, and a satellite dish hidden under a pile of debris. He said they're building more. They're not alone. He asked me to pass on this message. The future doesn't belong to the chipped. It belongs to the ones who remember how to live without permission. I don't know about you, but that stuck with me. Here's something that should concern you. Reports coming in from southern Illinois say a whole town, name withheld, has been blacked out. Not just power, not just comms. Satellite imagery too. Gone. Locals say it started with a few people refusing the chip. They formed a collective, started trading off-grid, teaching each other how to fix engines, purify rainwater, make soap from ash and fat. Someone tipped off the feds. A convoy rolled through 2 nights ago. Blackout trucks, no plates, drones overhead. The next morning, every house with a red X was empty. The streets are quiet now. Too quiet. One caller, hiding in a crawl space, said the only sound left is the whine of battery packs and the soft hum of something mechanical sweeping the roads at night. She doesn't think they're cleaning up. She thinks they're scanning for movement. Her name was Tara. She didn't ask for help. She just said, "Tell them we tried. Tell them we stood our ground." I'm telling them, Tara. I promise you, I'm telling them. Let's talk about how deep this goes. You think the chip is American-made? Think again. Multiple sources, including a guy who used to build firmware for smart implants, say the core components of this thing come from a partnership between several unnamed tech firms overseas, China, Israel, and a European conglomerate that went quiet back in 2028. You can't find records on them anymore. Not online, not in filings, not anywhere. This wasn't built overnight. This was installed, quietly, like termites under the floorboards. And now the house is caving in. There's no democratic process for what's happening right now. No checks, no balances. Only 2 options: plug in or disappear. I want to take a moment here, because I know some of you are scared. You're wondering how long you can last. Maybe you've got a kid asleep on the floor next to you. Maybe you're crouched in a pantry with a wind-up radio. Maybe you haven't seen another living soul in days. But if you're hearing this, you're still in the fight. You haven't given up. You haven't bent the knee. And that means there's still hope. Not the kind sold in campaigns, not the kind printed on bumper stickers. Real hope, the kind that wakes up hungry, scared, and cold, and still chooses to hold the line. We've got a message looping in now. It's from a group calling themselves the Echo. They're broadcasting on shortwave somewhere near the Smoky Mountains. Their message repeats every 30 minutes. It's short, simple. If you are unchipped, you are not alone. There is still a way out. Follow the map. Trust the flame. I don't know what the flame means, but I've seen a few maps recently. Ones passed by hand, scribbled in pencil, stained with dirt and tears. They trace roads that don't show up on GPS anymore, paths between abandoned radio towers, dry creek beds, broken rail lines. People are moving. And they're not moving toward FEMA centers. They're moving toward each other. Because in a world trying to tag you, number you, and own you, the only thing that's still real is the person next to you. You don't need a chip to be human. You don't need a scan to matter. All you need is a voice, a will, and the strength to say no, even when everything around you is screaming yes. This is Jordan Hale holding the line. And this signal, as long as I'm breathing, it won't go dark. Keep your eyes on the sky. Keep your feet off the main roads. And whatever happens next, don't let them take your name. This is Jordan Hale. You're still on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you can still hear me, then we're both still alive. It's just after midnight here. 5 hours since the world changed. 5 hours since the president told us to line up, smile, and surrender our names to a machine. If you're just tuning in now, we've been covering the fallout, the checkpoints, the account freezes, the silent towns, the places that vanished from satellite view, and the ones trying to stay human in a world that's quickly forgetting what that means. But what I'm about to tell you, this goes deeper, because someone just called me from inside the bunker, and I don't mean some storm shelter in a backyard. I'm talking about the bunker, the classified one, the one carved into the rock deep beneath DC, the one they always said was just for continuity of government. They're in there now, the ones who pushed the button. And one of them just broke silence. The call came in 10 minutes ago. Untraceable. No caller ID. Routed through a series of satellites I didn't even think were still active. At first, I thought it was a prank. The voice on the line was calm. Almost too calm. She called herself Marin. Didn't give a rank. Didn't need to. She knew things. Details I couldn't fake. The station code, the location of my backup generator. Hell, she even described the dent on the east side of this broadcast tower, where lightning struck back in '29. And then she said this, "Jordan, I need you to listen carefully. The chip isn't the end, it's the opening act." I asked her what that meant. She told me the unified identity chip was greenlit nearly 6 years ago, during the collapse, back when the markets cratered and cities started issuing their own currencies just to keep the lights on. But that collapse, it wasn't spontaneous. According to her, the economic crash was engineered, systematically, patiently, designed to create desperation. Because desperate people will accept anything that promises order. That's when the contracts were signed. Private sector, foreign developers, predictive behavior firms, everything wrapped in the usual ribbons. National security, fraud prevention, public welfare. But the real goal was never about safety. It was dependency. They called it Project Pavlov, and the chip? That's just the leash. She said it started as a trial in closed environments, prisons, border processing sites, detention centers. They tracked what people ate, when they slept, what they feared, what they worshipped, Every signal fed back into an algorithm that calculated compliance levels. The lower your score, the tighter the restrictions. And now they've rolled it out across the whole country. Phase 1 is identification. Phase 2 is behavior-based access. Phase 3? She wouldn't say. Only this: the next phase isn't something you'll see. It's something you'll feel, all at once. I asked her why she was telling me this. She paused. Then she said, "Because I chipped my own daughter last week. I thought I was protecting her. I thought I was giving her a future. But when I saw the report they ran on her, how they categorized her, ranked her, filtered her play habits into risk metrics, I knew. I gave them more than her ID. I gave them her soul." She asked me not to trace the call, told me she only had one more secure channel left, said she was going dark, maybe for good. And her last words: "Tell them the system doesn't fail, it adapts, and if we don't stop it now, there won't be a world left worth saving." The line went dead, just like that. No click, no static, just silence. I don't know who Marin really is, but I believe her. And if she's right, if the chip is just the start, then we're in more danger than we thought. Because this isn't about tracking. It's about rewriting who you are. Not just your bank account, not just your location, but your choices, your family, your voice. This thing, it doesn't stop at the skin. It maps your mind. I've been staring at my hands for the last few minutes. They still shake sometimes when I think about how fast this happened, how easy it was for them to flip the switch. But there's still time. Not much, but enough. Enough to run. Enough to resist. Enough to find each other before they put up the walls too high to climb. You don't need a chip to live. You need food, shelter, a name, a fire. And if someone tells you they can't give you those things without scanning your wrist first, they're not offering help. They're offering chains. The wind's picking up outside. I can hear it through the wall. The trees are moving like they know something's coming. And maybe they do. Because something is coming. Not just drones and checkpoints, not just silence on the airwaves, but a choice. The kind that tells you what kind of person you really are. What kind of people we are. And when that moment hits, you're either still human or you're not. This is Jordan Hale. Still free, still broadcasting. I'll be back in 10 minutes if the tower holds. Until then, don't scan, don't surrender, and don't forget who you are. You're tuned to 99.3 FM. This is the last frequency, and I'm Jordan Hale. 6 hours since the signal went live. 6 hours since the world got quieter and colder. I just stepped outside the tower. The sky's clouded over. The wind is pushing in from the east. There's no moon tonight, just a low hum in the distance, like the land itself is holding its breath. They say nothing breaks all at once, but they're wrong. We're watching it happen in real time. Here's what I know. Libraries have gone dark, not just closed, erased. They're locking the doors and hauling out the shelves, not with fanfare, not with tape and caution signs. Quietly, with gloves and vans and men who don't speak. One caller from a small town in Oregon said her local library was emptied in the span of 2 hours. Catalogs deleted. Server racks dismantled. The only thing they left behind were the empty chairs. She said the librarian, a woman in her 60s, stood outside holding a single book. No words, just stood there as the trucks pulled away, like she was trying to remember what silence used to mean. And churches, they're not faring any better. Reports from Alabama, Kentucky, parts of Pennsylvania, same story, buildings shuttered, crosses torn down, in some cases replaced with sleek black kiosks with scanners built into the base, verification before worship. Think about that. People walk in to pray, and they're told to scan their wrists first. If you don't verify, you're told to leave. Because grace, now, has a system login. This thing, it's not just about money. It's not even just about movement. It's about memory. They're trying to erase where we've been so they can decide where we're allowed to go. And it's working. A man from South Carolina called in earlier, voice shaking, trying not to cry. He said his daughter came home from school with a permission slip, but it wasn't for a trip or a vaccination. It was consent for implantation. She's 7. They told her it would help her keep up with the other students. They told her it would make her life easier. She asked him why they needed to fix her. He couldn't answer. Neither could I. I've been getting word from listeners about what's happening on the outskirts of the cities. Places like Milwaukee, Kansas City, Boise. They're not fully locked down, yet. But they're starting to fragment, stores closing without warning, ATMs blinking out. Trucks rerouted around neighborhoods that still have people inside, but no chip data flowing through the air. It's like they're drawing new borders, not by lines on a map, but by compliance zones. Live inside the circle, you're safe. Live outside it. You're invisible. One woman said her town was removed from the state registry site this morning. The name just vanished. No road alerts, no state website info, no mention on federal tracking tools. She said, "It's like we were unmade." If you're still out there, still holding on, I want you to know something. This station was never meant to last this long. It's a relic. Analog guts, patched transmitters, and a broadcast booth powered by desperation and duct tape. But you know what? It still works. And that's all that matters. Because even if the satellites go blind, even if the networks rot from the inside out, this signal will keep going. As long as I can speak, you'll have a voice on the air. Even if it's just to say, you are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not theirs. There's a man I used to know, retired firefighter, lived in Montana. He used to say, you don't measure a man by how he talks when it's sunny. You measure him by the way he speaks when the fire's at his door. Well, the fire's here now. And I can still hear you calling in. Still whispering over static, still pinging repeaters in the hills. That means something. That means we haven't gone quiet. Not yet. One last thing before I break to reset the array. I received a paper letter yesterday. No envelope. No address. Just my name and a message. They want to replace belief with obedience. They want you to kneel, not to something greater, but to something smaller. Don't give them that. Be stubborn. Be slow. Be loud. Whoever wrote that, thank you. Because that's what I intend to do. Be stubborn. Be slow. Be loud. This is Jordan Hale, still standing, still free. Stay warm, stay hidden, and keep the signal alive. I'll be back in 20 if the lights stay on. This is 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Jordan Hale speaking. If you're hearing this, then we've still got power. We've still got breath. The signal's holding. For now. But something strange just happened, and I want you to hear it for yourself. I've been picking up a loop on the secondary band. Quiet, buried under white noise, bouncing off high-altitude towers we haven't used in years. It's not a voice. It's tones. Low pulses in sequence. 5 tones, then 3, then a pause. Repeating every 11 minutes. Always the same. I ran it through my old decoding rig. It's been dormant for ages, but the machine still knows how to read Morse. The message reads, "Follow the spine. North trail marked. Fire moves at night. Move fast." No signature. No origin. But the frequency was registered once, 12 years ago, during the Cascadia drill series. Homeland Security used it for evacuation patterns in the event of natural disaster. Except this time, the disaster isn't nature. It's man-made. Here's what I think it means. Follow the spine. That's not just poetry. That's the Rockies, the backbone of the continent. We're talking about a route, probably on foot, probably invisible to drones and chip sensors, maybe even through old ranger trails or fire roads they forgot to map when they switched over to automated cartography. North Trail marked. That's a breadcrumb. Someone's left signs, painted rocks, scratched trees, flares if you're lucky. Fire moves at night. That's not literal. That's them. Enforcement units, heat-seeking patrols, quiet drones with cold engines. They don't make noise, but they burn through the dark like hounds with steel eyes. And the last part? Move fast. That's not a warning. That's a prayer. I've gotten 3 calls since that signal started repeating. One from a former trail guide in Colorado who said she's been sheltering with a group of 27 people in an old ski lodge. They move during the day, sleep underground, and use mirrored blankets to block thermal readings. They've got no internet, no IDs, no one chipped. But they're getting out. She said the group split up a week ago. Half went west toward Idaho. The others are heading north toward something called Beacon Ridge. It doesn't show up on any map I can access, but they swear it exists. She said you'll know it when you see a line of dead trees, cut straight down the middle of a forest, like something carved a road through the pines with a sword. That's their path. Another call came from a teenage boy hiding in the ventilation shaft of a data center outside Salt Lake City. He didn't talk much. His voice was thin, tired. He said the facility's been converted. They're using it to process biometric waveforms, matching chip patterns with movement behaviors. He said the people inside don't talk anymore. They don't even blink. They just scan, input, repeat. He asked me if his mother might be listening. If you're out there, your son is alive. He's scared, but he hasn't given up. He told me to tell you. I still have the necklace. That's all he said before the line dropped. It didn't disconnect. It died. No trace. Just gone. The third message didn't come by call. It came by foot. A girl, maybe 16, showed up at the outer gate of this station 2 hours ago. No shoes. Dirt on her face. Wrapped in an old parka with military patches she probably found on the road. She didn't say her name. She just handed me a folded map and said, "They're erasing towns. Not just from the net, from the land. They're flattening places, like they were never there." She didn't wait for water, didn't wait for food, just turned and ran back into the tree line like something was chasing her. I opened the map. There are 37 red circles, all across the Midwest and into Ontario. Underneath it, in thick black ink, these places no longer exist. If you still believe this is temporary, if you still believe the chip is optional, wake up. They're redrawing the country, in silence, with lines you'll never see unless you're on the wrong side of them. The signal loop is back now, stronger. It's not just Morse anymore. Someone added a voice, faint behind the tone. A whisper on repeat. Keep moving. The roads are not safe. If you're hearing this, you are the resistance. I don't know who they are, but I believe them. Because I've seen what happens to the ones who stay still. They vanish. From records, from networks, from the world. And I won't let that happen to you. We've got flickers in the signal array. Something's probing the frequency, trying to jam the outbound feed. I'll have to reset in a few minutes. Might go dark for a bit. If that happens, if the air goes quiet, just wait. I'll come back. Even if I have to build a transmitter out of car parts and bare copper. This is Jordan Hale, still breathing, still free. And you? You're still part of the story. We write the ending together. No matter how much they try to burn the pages. This is 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Or it was, for a while. If you're still with me, if you're still out there, then you noticed the silence. Roughly 17 minutes. Dead air. That wasn't equipment failure. That wasn't a storm. That was them. Signal disruption, just like they used in border zones a few years back. A full band sweep designed to choke out civilian chatter. You wouldn't even know it was happening unless you were inside a studio like this, watching the needles jump with nothing to read. They got close, but not close enough. I'm back. We're back. And something happened while I was off. Someone hijacked the tower. I'm still not sure how. The system's supposed to be analog. Manual overrides, hard switches, offline buffers. But during those 17 minutes, someone plugged into my transmitter. They took the signal, and they left a message. Only 30 seconds long. But I caught it. And I recorded it. Here's what it said. This is not the end. This is the moment before the flood breaks. If you can hear this, we are moving. Safe corridors exist between Sector 7 and 9. Do not trust federal relief. Do not return to origin zones. Do not let them map you. The ones who disappear are not dead. They are rewritten. That last word, rewritten. The voice broke when they said it, like even speaking it hurt. And now I can't stop thinking about what it means. We've talked about being flagged. We've talked about being marked. But rewritten? What does that mean? A woman in Ohio called me, before the blackout, said her sister vanished for 3 days after refusing the chip. When she came back, she was smiling, calm, cooperative, said she'd just needed time to think. But she didn't recognize her own dog, didn't ask about their father, didn't remember they used to take night walks down Maple Ridge. She just kept repeating, "I'm verified now. Everything's easier." It didn't sound like relief. It sounded like programming, like the memory wasn't real, like it had been installed. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a technician. But I know what I'm seeing. People are being unplugged, replaced, their stories overwritten like files on an old drive. It's not science fiction. It's the world now. And if they can rewrite your memories, your loyalty, your sense of self, then what's left? That's not identity. That's possession. I got a call from a retired technician out of El Paso. He says the chip's architecture is modular, meaning they can add functions without reinstalling hardware. He said he once worked on adaptive cognition mesh prototypes. His words, not mine. When I asked what that meant, he got quiet. Then he said, "Imagine a thought that didn't come from you, but you felt it like it did. That's the end game." He hung up after that, didn't even say goodbye. I know this is hard to hear. I know some of you want me to stop, to say it's not that bad, to say we'll go back to how things were. But we won't, not unless we make it change, and not unless we understand what we're up against. This isn't about forcing us into a system. This is about erasing the part of us that says no. I've gotten dozens of messages in the last hour, people trying to find one another, people trying to stay untracked, people building radios from parts they pulled out of barns and busted trucks. And then, this one, a scrap of audio, low fidelity, choppy, probably recorded on a loop mic buried in a wall. It said, "We remember who we were. We remember who we are. We remember who we will be. They can take our fingerprints, but they can't steal our stories." That's it. That's the message. And I don't know about you, but I needed to hear that. Because in a world this dark, memory is resistance. You hold on to who you were. You hold on to the things they want you to forget, and you write them down if you have to. On paper, on walls, in songs, anywhere they can't delete it. I'm going to reinforce the signal line now. Run a cold switch so they can't piggyback this frequency again. But I'll be here, and so will you. Because you're still breathing, still listening, still you. And you're not meant to be rewritten. You're meant to be remembered. This is Jordan Hale signing back in. The next part is already waiting. Let's make sure we're still here to hear it. You're back on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. This is Jordan Hale. It's been 6 hours and 42 minutes since the broadcast directive, the one that told every man, woman, and child to line up for a chip and call it protection. Since then, the world has been unraveling by the hour. And now, it's going dark. I've just received word from multiple sources, ham radio, satellite pingbacks, even word-of-mouth relays from people moving on foot. Entire grid sectors are shutting down. It started in North Texas, spread west into Arizona. Then the lights dropped across most of the Plains states. From Des Moines to Cheyenne, people are staring at dead streets. Not a power outage, not a rolling blackout, not the kind of thing where you light a candle and wait for the hum to return. This is deliberate, and it's spreading. One listener from Wichita said his block went dark 3 hours ago, right after his neighbor refused the verification crew. Within minutes, their smart meters lit red. Their street lamps blinked twice, then went black, and shortly after, his entire block, 15 houses, lost power, phone, gas. His message was short. "They're carving up the map, Jordan, turning off anyone who won't kneel. They're not just flagging resistance anymore. They're isolating it, starving it. And as of 20 minutes ago, the pattern's changed. It's not just rural zones anymore. I've confirmed parts of Minneapolis, St. Louis, and even southern Denver have gone silent. We're not watching collapse. We're watching containment. And here's where it gets worse. I just received a direct warning. Shortwave burst, 6 digits, followed by 3 words. The code matches my tower's identification. The message: broadcast identified, signal mapped, terminate transmission. That came from a federal relay out of Maryland, and if that's not a threat, I don't know what is. So I'm going to say this now, in case they decide to come for me next. This tower? It's old. It's ugly. It was never meant to survive the modern age, but it has. Because truth doesn't need perfect bandwidth. It just needs a place to land. And as long as this place holds, I'll keep transmitting. Even if they zero in. Even if the lights go out. Even if they cut me off mid-word. You'll still know. You'll know that someone out there didn't bend, didn't break, didn't belong to them. There's more. I've started receiving intercepted feeds in languages I don't recognize. Not just Spanish or Russian. Something more layered. Machine-spoken. Flat, but precise. One message was in English, robotic, looped, buried in code. Foreign integration complete. Link secured. Oversight transitioning. Directive unchanged. Foreign integration? If you're hearing this, understand what that means. The chip system we were told was for your protection might not even be ours. It might not belong to this country at all. The infrastructure, the software, the surveillance scaffolding, it could have been licensed, bought, or even traded. Which means everything you do inside the system doesn't just belong to a government. It could belong to anyone. And once it's in for good. That's not citizenship. That's slavery. A courier made it to my doorstep tonight. No name, no light, just a whisper and a flash drive wrapped in canvas. The drive contained one thing, a schematic. Not of the chip, of the satellite array that feeds it. The grid doesn't just track you locally, it listens globally. Tiny uplinks, constant heartbeat pings. Even when the chip's not active, it's listening. Broadcasting, mapping you against every other chipped signal within a 100-mile radius. And if that sounds paranoid, it's because it is. But it's also real. And you need to know what they're building is not a system. It's a cage. One you can't see, one you can't feel. Until the door slams shut. Someone once told me there would be a moment, a point of no return, a line we'd either cross or hold. I think this is that moment. And if you're still listening, then you're standing on the edge of it. So ask yourself, if they take your power, if they freeze your account, if they cut your water, your voice, your ability to live, will you kneel or will you walk? Even if it means darkness, even if it means cold, even if it means not knowing what's waiting past the next ridge. Will you walk anyway? This is Jordan Hale. Still free, still not chipped. The night is stretching, but we stretch with it. I'll be back if they let me, and even if they don't. Because silence is what they want, but we are not quiet. Not yet. This is 99.3 FM. You're tuned to the last frequency. I'm Jordan Hale, still on the air, though I can't promise for how long. It's just past 3 a.m. now. 7 hours since the announcement. 7 hours since everything turned, like someone flipped the switch on an entire country and decided that from now on, the only people who mattered were the ones willing to kneel. And here I am, broadcasting from an old tower stitched together with wires that crackle if the wind pushes wrong. reaching out to anyone whose name hasn't yet been erased from the system. There's something I need to tell you. Something I can barely believe myself. I think I found something buried inside the FEMA emergency broadcasts. A pattern. A message. And if I'm right, if I'm not just sleep-deprived and imagining shadows where there are none, then the system itself might be trying to speak. Or maybe it's already being spoken through. Let me start from the beginning. Earlier tonight, while the power flickered and the sky outside turned that heavy, low gray, the kind of sky that presses down on your lungs, I ran a side-channel scan on the FEMA alert frequency. You know the one. That robotic voice that plays on loop when they override the local station. The one that tells you to remain calm, to report to your designated verification site, to comply with personnel in uniform. It sounds normal enough. Cold, flat, predictable. But not tonight. Tonight something changed. Between the words, in the silence between the syllables. There's a pulse. Not random, not noise. A signal. At first, I thought it was just line noise, some low-frequency carrier wave bouncing around from all the chaos in the grid. But the timing, the frequency, the repetition, it wasn't natural. I ran it through the decoder I used earlier, the one that caught that Morse code signal from the Rockies. I isolated the waveform, slowed it down, and stacked it against past broadcasts. And what I found? It only started after the president's announcement. The pattern spells one word, over and over again. Obey. Not spoken, not typed, pulsed. Like it was stitched into the backbone of the message. And here's the part that chilled me more than anything else tonight. The word isn't in English. It's in binary. Obey. Broadcasted invisibly inside every alert from every government channel since the chip was announced. And it's still going, right now, in every major city, on every override frequency, buried inside the voice that tells you this is for your safety. Tell me, what kind of system needs to whisper obedience underneath its own voice? But that's not the worst of it, because right after I decoded the message, I got a call. Not a human voice this time, not even a proper connection. It was routed through a known FEMA uplink, but what came through was corrupted. At first, I heard static. Then, something else. It was another alert message, but not one we were supposed to hear. It started as normal. This is a broadcast message from the National Emergency Alert Network. Then it glitched. The voice shifted. And suddenly it wasn't calm anymore. It screamed, "Error. Unverified input. Clearance override failed. Subject behavioral profile incompatible." Then silence. And then this. Chip integrity breached. Subjects rejecting compliance loop. Patch failed. I recorded it. I've played it back 15 times. It doesn't sound like a malfunction. It sounds like something learning. Here's what I think is happening. And I'll say this slow, because I want you to really feel it. The chip system, whatever it's tied to, is starting to collapse under its own weight. Not all the verified users are staying compliant. Some of them, maybe just a few at first, are rejecting the behavioral loops, breaking free, which means the system is responding by trying to rewrite them harder, reboot them, patch the compliance, but it's not working. And in the process, it's starting to crack. I've received a half-dozen messages in the last hour from people who were chipped early, voluntarily. Some were government workers, some were healthcare, some were just scared and thought it would make things easier. They're reporting hallucinations, waking dreams, lapses in memory, blacking out for minutes at a time and waking up in different rooms, not recognizing people they know. And most disturbing of all, they say they hear voices, even when nothing is being said. A constant whisper, sometimes in English, sometimes in something else. Not a voice they know, but one that knows them. One man, a former paramedic from Cincinnati, wrote, "It's like there's a second mind living underneath mine. It doesn't speak to me, it speaks through me. I didn't notice it at first, but now I can feel when it moves. I think it wants to take over." He had the chip installed during rollout testing, a high-trust candidate, they called him. He ended the message with one last line: "If I disappear, Jordan, don't assume I'm dead. Just assume I'm not me anymore. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what this really is. This isn't just surveillance. This isn't just control. It's replacement. They don't want to watch you. They want to become you. And they're using the chip to do it. One pulse, one patch, one overwritten command line at a time. The wind just picked up outside. Feels like something's shifted. The tower creaks in a way it hasn't all night. Might be nothing. Might be someone coming. Either way, I'm not leaving. Because as long as I have breath and light and a voice, I'll keep telling you the truth. And the truth is this: if the chip was supposed to protect us, then why are the ones who accepted it the first to vanish? Why are they losing their memories? Why are they becoming strangers in their own skin? And why is the system panicking? You already know the answer. You've known it since the beginning. The mark wasn't meant to help you. It was meant to hollow you out. This is Jordan Hale, still broadcasting, still remembering, and you're not alone in this fight. Stay human, stay unchipped, stay real, because once you're rewritten, there's no undoing it. This is Jordan Hale, still holding steady behind the mic at 99.3 FM, the last frequency, and I have to be honest with you. I'm not sure how much longer this place will hold, because something has shifted in the air around us, something subtle but undeniable, like the moment when you realize the silence you're standing in isn't just quiet, it's deliberate. It's been over 8 hours since the president's voice broke into every signal in this country and spoke the words that started all of this. Words that, in their clinical delivery, sounded like policy, but moved through this nation like a spark through dry brush. And in the hours since, everything we thought we could depend on has either gone dark, turned against us, or begun to warp into something unrecognizable. But even in the dark, even when the lights fail and the static creeps in at the edges of the transmission, there are still people, real people, pushing back against the tide. And tonight, one of them found a way to reach me. I received a message. Not through the usual channels, not a call, not a relay, not even a shortwave burst. It came in the form of a physical drive, hand-delivered by someone who never came closer than the tree line. They tossed it through the air. It landed by the front door, wrapped in foil, sealed in wax, with only one word etched on the outside. Remember. When I opened it, What I found inside made me pause in a way I haven't since the first wave of lockdowns rolled across the continent. It was a compilation: video clips, voice memos, logs pulled from devices that, by all rights, should have been wiped clean by now, but somehow weren't. And in every file, every whisper, every jittery frame of footage, one thing kept happening. People who had been chipped were starting to remember who they were. Briefly, imperfectly, but undeniably. A man from Ontario, who, according to his ID, had been verified 2 weeks ago, recorded a 3-minute message to himself in the middle of the night, staring into a cracked bathroom mirror, repeating names, dates, places, like someone fighting to hang onto a rope while the current tried to drag him under. "My name is Michael. My daughter is Sophia. I worked at the hydro station. I used to love jazz. I used to hate coffee. I remember the smell of the kitchen when she cooked on Sundays. I remember the scar on her hand from when she fell on the stairs. I remember." And then his voice broke, and he whispered. They tried to take it, but it came back. I turned off the signal. I pulled the wire out of the wall, and for 1 hour, I was me again. A young woman in Georgia wrote in a physical journal. Yes, an actual notebook, the kind we used to keep before every thought was typed and uploaded and mined and archived, about hearing a static tremor in her head when she crossed outside the pulse perimeter of her town. She said it was like the hum of a refrigerator suddenly vanishing in a power outage. You don't realize it was there until it's gone, and then the silence feels louder than the noise. She walked into the woods, sat under a tree, waited, and somewhere, deep in that stillness, she remembered her brother's face. She wrote, "It was like waking up from a dream where your own name was missing. I didn't just remember his face. I remembered missing him. That feeling, it came back. They hadn't killed it. They'd only buried it." The files kept coming. Scans of circuit boards, DIY diagrams of makeshift disruptors, devices made from old microwaves, vacuum tubes, and magnet wire that, according to their makers, can interrupt the chip's signal field for a limited radius. And at the center of all of this, of every clip, every scribbled note, every fragmented scream of memory, was a single idea blooming in the dark. It's not irreversible. Whatever this thing is, however deep it goes, there are cracks in it. Tiny ones, yes, but growing. And through those cracks, we can still slip our names, our stories, ourselves. Tonight, for the first time since all this began, I heard from someone claiming to have helped build the infrastructure that made this all possible. He didn't use a real name, just called himself Zero G. Said he was an embedded systems engineer subcontracted under a division that, on paper, didn't exist. He spoke in hushed tones, distorted by masking software, his words bent through delay loops and reverb chambers so no AI listener could flag his voice print. But I heard him. And what he said? It's worse than we thought. He said the chip doesn't just read you, it writes you. It adjusts your baseline cognition based on proximity to what they call compliance zones. He used phrases like neural plasticity injection and dynamic loyalty modulation, terms that sounded like sci-fi to me, but I knew, in my gut, they were real. He said the chip is listening even when you sleep. It learns your cadence, your hesitation patterns, your micro-responses to authority. And once it learns enough, it rewrites you so slowly, you think you're the one changing. He told me the first test subject was a child, 7 years old. taken from a custody dispute under the label of protective welfare routing. He said she forgot her name within 4 days. And just as he said that, I heard it. A sound I haven't heard in years. Metal on gravel. Boots. Close. Too close. I turned off every light but one. The small red bulb behind me, barely enough to cast a shadow, just enough to remind me that I'm still in this chair, still awake, still here. And then, silence again. Nothing but wind. For now. But I know what that sound means. Someone found the station, and whether they're coming for me, or just watching to see what I'll say next, I can't be sure. All I know is this. They're closer than they've ever been, and the air smells like copper. So if this is my last full broadcast, let it be known. The chip is not salvation. It's not safety. It's not progress. It's a parasite. It doesn't just track what you do. It burrows into what you believe. And when it finishes feeding, you won't even realize you were ever someone else. But I promise you this, wherever you are, however far you've run, there is still a way back. And as long as this tower stands, as long as these wires still hum, as long as my voice still rises through the dark, you will hear the truth. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency, and I am not done yet. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting live, or at least still breathing, from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're hearing this, then the tower's still humming, the cables are still pulsing, and the fire inside this old rust bucket of a transmitter hasn't gone out just yet. We've made it to hour 9, and if that sounds impossible, if that sounds like a mistake, I want you to know it's not. It's a testament, not to me, not to this station, but to you, to the fact that someone out there, somewhere, is still choosing not to kneel. And that's enough to keep the mic hot. The situation has taken a turn, another one. This time, not in the direction we expected. Over the last 3 hours, I've received multiple reports, not from civilians, not from radio junkies, but from inside, from former base medics, retired military analysts, and even a man who says he used to work logistics at the Quantico command vault. They're saying the system is starting to fold in on itself, that the very facilities designed to roll out the mark, those brutalist bunkers tucked behind barbed wire and biometric locks, are now seeing internal failure, not sabotage, not hacking, collapse from within. Here's what I mean. One message, patched in via encrypted ham relay, came from a woman who identified herself only as Redline. She said she was stationed at a Tier 3 distribution node outside Sacramento, FEMA Center 0842, tasked with routing ID confirmations and pulse synchronizations for nearly 200,000 chipped residents. She said that sometime around 2:45, their master sync loop went dead. Just blink. Gone. No warnings. No diagnostics. Just blackness. And then the screaming started. She said it began with 3 personnel, all verified, all chipped, all recently through Phase 2 cognitive clearance. They dropped to the floor in sequence, like puppets whose strings were yanked by something angry. One started thrashing. One started muttering in what she said sounded like Latin, though she admitted she doesn't actually know Latin. And the last, he just stood there, silent, smiling, bleeding from both ears. He didn't blink, not once. When backup tried to sedate him, he whispered something she'll never forget. "You're not real. You're remembering wrong." And then he pulled the fire alarm with a calmness you can't fake. She ran. These aren't isolated events. Reports are flooding in from Denver, from Boise, from scattered bunkers tucked away in the Appalachian foothills, all repeating the same thing. The system's breaking down, and it's taking people with it. I've had 3 confirmed sightings of what some are calling compliance psychosis, a kind of meltdown that only seems to affect those who've been fully verified and synced for more than 48 hours. Symptoms range from short-term memory blackouts and emotional flatlining to sudden identity inversion. People who forget their own names, or who begin repeating other people's names like a looped voicemail, sometimes for hours. A nurse from an underground shelter near Little Rock said one of her patients, a 13-year-old boy who was chipped against his will during a school-wide sweep, began insisting he wasn't himself, but his older brother, a brother who died 2 years ago in a flood. He began writing journal entries in handwriting that matched his brother's old notebooks, down to the signature, down to the doodles. She tried to sedate him. He asked her what year it was. When she told him, he smiled and said, "That's not the year I'm in." Now, here's where it gets stranger. Because while some are cracking under the weight of the chip's signal, others seem to be resisting it through sound. I got a relay transmission from a commune that sprung up in southern Utah, deep in the dry canyons. They call themselves the Echo Still. No one knows how many there are. Could be 20, could be 200. But they've built something I haven't heard about anywhere else. They call it a silence dome. It's not literal silence, not total quiet. It's a sonic field, a constant layer of disruptive frequencies played through dozens of jury-rigged speakers, all running analog, all shielded with aluminum mesh and copper foil. The signal doesn't cancel noise. It jams control. They've tested it. They brought in a man who'd already been chipped, said he hadn't been able to cry or laugh or even taste food in days. He was just blank. After 12 minutes inside the dome, he began to tremble. After 23 minutes, he cried. And after 45 minutes, he fell asleep for the first time in 70 hours. They told me they don't fully understand what they've built. They don't claim to be scientists. They're just survivors who learned one truth. The chip can't override what it can't sync. That may be the answer. That may be the beginning of the path forward. Not through violence, not through rage, but through disruption, through noise, through memory. Because that's the one thing the chip doesn't know how to process. Memory isn't data. It's not ones and zeros. It's the smell of your mother's perfume in a hallway you haven't walked since you were 6. It's the crack of a baseball glove under an open sky. It's the weight of your father's hand on your shoulder when he didn't have the words to say, "I'm proud of you." It's the music that played when you first kissed the person you didn't know you'd lose. How do you erase that? You don't, unless you're afraid of it. And they are. Because real memory is messy. It's unpredictable. It's human. And the chip, for all its intelligence, for all its biometric syncing and AI-assisted surveillance and real-time compliance metrics, it doesn't know how to be human. That's our edge. I can't tell you what's coming next. I wish I could. All I know is this tower's still standing, the transmitter's still warm, and I still have enough diesel in the generator to ride out another few hours. And as long as I'm here, you won't face the dark alone. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Your memory is a weapon. Use it. This is Jordan Hale, still holding steady behind the mic at 99.3 FM, the last frequency, and I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure how much longer this place will hold, because something has shifted in the air around us. Something subtle, but undeniable. Like the moment when you realize the silence you're standing in isn't just quiet, it's deliberate. It's been over 8 hours since the president's voice broke into every signal in this country and spoke the words that started all of this, words that, in their clinical delivery, sounded like policy but moved through this nation like a spark through dry brush. And in the hours since, everything we thought we could depend on has either gone dark, turned against us, or begun to warp into something unrecognizable. But even in the dark, even when the lights fail and the static creeps in at the edges of the transmission, there are still people, real people, pushing back against the tide. And tonight, one of them found a way to reach me. I received a message, not through the usual channels, not a call, not a relay, not even a shortwave burst. It came in the form of a physical drive, hand-delivered by someone who never came closer than the tree line. They tossed it through the air. It landed by the front door, wrapped in foil, sealed in wax, with only one word etched on the outside. Remember. When I opened it, what I found inside made me pause in a way I haven't since the first wave of lockdowns rolled across the continent. It was a compilation. Video clips, voice memos, logs pulled from devices that, by all rights, should have been wiped clean by now, but somehow weren't. And in every file, every whisper, every jittery frame of footage, one thing kept happening. People who had been chipped were starting to remember who they were. Briefly, imperfectly, but undeniably. A man from Ontario who, according to his ID, had been verified 2 weeks ago, recorded a 3-minute message to himself in the middle of the night, staring into a cracked bathroom mirror, repeating names, dates, places, like someone fighting to hang onto a rope while the current tried to drag him under. My name is Michael. My daughter is Sophia. I worked at the hydro station. I used to love jazz. I used to hate coffee. I remember the smell of the kitchen when she cooked on Sundays. I remember the scar on her hand from when she fell on the stairs. I remember. And then his voice broke, and he whispered, "They tried to take it, but it came back." I turned off the signal. I pulled the wire out of the wall, and for 1 hour, I was me again. A young woman in Georgia wrote in a physical journal, yes, an actual notebook, the kind we used to keep before every thought was typed and uploaded and mined and archived, about hearing a static tremor in her head when she crossed outside the pulse perimeter of her town. She said it was like the hum of a refrigerator suddenly vanishing in a power outage. You don't realize it was there until it's gone, and then the silence feels louder than the noise. She walked into the woods, sat under a tree, waited. And somewhere, deep in that stillness, she remembered her brother's face. She wrote, "It was like waking up from a dream where your own name was missing. I didn't just remember his face. I remembered missing him. That feeling. It came back. They hadn't killed it. They'd only buried it." The files kept coming. Scans of circuit boards, DIY diagrams of makeshift disruptors, devices made from old microwaves, vacuum tubes, and magnet wire that, according to their makers, can interrupt the chip's signal field for a limited radius. And at the center of all of this, of every clip, every scribbled note, every fragmented scream of memory, was a single idea blooming in the dark. It's not irreversible. Whatever this thing is, however deep it goes, there are cracks in it. Tiny ones, yes, but growing. And through those cracks, we can still slip our names, our stories, ourselves. Tonight, for the first time since all this began, I heard from someone claiming to have helped build the infrastructure that made this all possible. He didn't use a real name, just called himself Zero G. Said he was an embedded systems engineer subcontracted under a division that, on paper, didn't exist. He spoke in hushed tones, distorted by masking software, his words bent through delay loops and reverb chambers so no AI listener could flag his voice print. But I heard him, and what he said? It's worse than we thought. He said the chip doesn't just read you, it writes you. It adjusts your baseline cognition based on proximity to what they call compliance zones. He used phrases like neural plasticity injection and dynamic loyalty modulation, terms that sounded like sci-fi to me, but I knew, in my gut, they were real. He said the chip is listening even when you sleep. It learns your cadence, your hesitation patterns, your micro-responses to authority. And once it learns enough, it rewrites you so slowly, you think you're the one changing. He told me the first test subject was a child, 7 years old, taken from a custody dispute under the label of protective welfare routing. He said she forgot her name within 4 days. And just as he said that, I heard it. A sound I haven't heard in years. Metal on gravel. Boots. Close. Too close. I turned off every light but one. The small red bulb behind me, barely enough to cast a shadow, just enough to remind me that I'm still in this chair, still awake, still here. And then, silence again. Nothing but wind, for now. But I know what that sound means. Someone found the station, and whether they're coming for me, or just watching to see what I'll say next, I can't be sure. All I know is this: they're closer than they've ever been, and the air smells like copper. So if this is my last full broadcast, let it be known. The chip is not salvation. It's not safety. It's not progress. It's a parasite. It doesn't just track what you do. It burrows into what you believe. And when it finishes feeding, you won't even realize you were ever someone else. But I promise you this, wherever you are, however far you've run, there is still a way back. And as long as this tower stands, as long as these wires still hum, as long as my voice still rises through the dark, you will hear the truth. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And I am not done yet. You're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. This is Jordan Hale, and I've just gotten word of something you need to hear. If you're near a notepad, grab it. If your hands are full, drop whatever you don't need. And if you've been trying to pretend that this isn't happening, that this might just pass like all the other warnings that came before, I'm sorry. This moment is different. An hour ago, one of the government's official chip distribution convoys didn't just go offline. It crashed. Not glitched, not stalled, not rerouted. It crashed. And everyone saw it. Let me explain. The convoy was leaving one of the major FEMA hubs outside Kansas City, heading west, fully loaded with biometric scanner units, vials of neurostabilizers, and somewhere north of 1,000 implant kits. It was one of their high-priority deployments, what they call a Level 1 reassertion wave. You can always spot them because the vehicles are matte black, marked only with digital barcodes, no insignia, no flags, no names, just numbers, 6 trucks, 4 drones overhead, 2 armored jeeps running perimeter. They'd been moving in silence for about 70 miles. No open radio, no lights when it happened. About 2 minutes before the crash, an anonymous stream went live. No host, no watermark, just a GPS pin and a shaky cam view of an overpass. You could hear it in the distance before you saw it. The hum of those electric engines is unmistakable, like a hive of mechanical wasps gliding across asphalt. Then came the moment. From behind the concrete rail of the overpass, a flare shot straight into the air. Red, then white, then red again. And then a sound. Low. Unnatural. It was a tone, like feedback, but deeper. Some kind of directed resonance. Within seconds, the lead drone spiraled downward. The second drifted sideways, clipped a power pole, then dropped like a stone. And the trucks? They swerved, violently, as if every driver lost control at the same time. One crashed into a ditch, another jackknifed across both lanes. The last in line burst into flames. That stream stayed live for 3 minutes, just long enough to show a silhouette stepping into view. No face, no voice, just a hand, gloved, steady, placing a sign on the hood of the smoking truck. Black paint. 3 words, "The signal kills." Within moments, the stream was pulled, but not before it was mirrored 6,000 times. And if you think the government would spin it, they tried. They called it a thermal malfunction, claimed the flare was a distress signal from a civilian vehicle. But too many people saw it live. Too many felt the frequency, and too many knew deep in their bones that whatever hit those trucks wasn't random. It was a message. I got a message too, just 15 minutes ago. Encrypted packet, no subject line, no signature, just coordinates, latitude, longitude, elevation, and a phrase, "He's alive." I didn't recognize the number it came from, but the format, it matches a type of drop I used to see during my brief stint running backend for that underground comms project in 2025. The one that went dark after the executive order to stabilize unauthorized digital protocols. If you know, you know. The point is, whoever sent this, they've been watching me, listening, maybe even from the start, and they want me to go to the Rockies. Now, I don't say that lightly. It could be a trap. It probably is a trap. But the phrase, "he's alive," it's one I haven't seen in almost a year. That's the last thing someone said about a man named Marshall Keene, former intelligence officer, gone underground the day the chips were announced. Rumor was he had something big, data that proved the chip wasn't just about tracking people, but shaping them, rewiring behavior, embedding emotional response loops tied to economic stimuli. He called it algorithmic obedience. Last I heard, he vanished somewhere north of Eagle, Colorado. The signal from his rig cut out mid-broadcast. Everyone figured he was dead. But now, this. If he's alive, and if he's transmitting again, I have to try. In the meantime, we've confirmed something else. A fire has broken out in the biometric verification hub in Nashville. Massive blaze. No official word yet, but insiders say it's not an accident. Someone, or something, said it. Local fire suppression was overridden. Access to emergency drones was denied, meaning someone got inside and changed the fail-safes. And here's the strange part. Just before the fire, There were reports of an internal blackout, not power, memory, as in, the central verification system began returning blank fields. Names disappeared, IDs were wiped, not globally, just inside the hub. For 10 minutes, no one who scanned through that building existed. When they tried to resync, they got a response error. 404, verification object not found. For those 10 minutes, everyone who walked through the checkpoint was invisible to the system. And that's more than sabotage. That's hope. Because this isn't just about resisting, it's about remembering, reclaiming, and maybe, just maybe, erasing what they built. You still with me? Good. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And I swear to you, I'm going to follow this. Even if it means driving into the dark, even if it means I never come back. Because someone has to know. This is Jordan Hale. You're still on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And right now, if you're in one of the blackout zones, if you're listening through a battery-powered rig or an old transistor or a rigged-up hand crank receiver, you're one of the lucky ones. Because most people, they're in the dark. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Literally. The grid has gone down. We've got confirmed full system outages in 3 major zones as of 20 minutes ago, all within the span of 6 minutes. Zone 1, Charlotte, North Carolina. Zone 2, Denver, Colorado. Zone 3, Seattle, Washington. These weren't rolling blackouts. They weren't staged maintenance windows. They hit like synchronized heart attacks. Total power loss, telecom failure, emergency frequencies jammed, signal interference so dense you could practically feel it in your teeth. And then, silence. The kind that makes your skin crawl. The kind that feels too quiet to be natural. And here's what's worse. The chip stopped responding. In each of those 3 cities, verified citizens, chipped and synced, lost connection with the central net, which you'd think would be good news. But the way it happened, something about it isn't sitting right. A man called in from just outside of Charlotte. Said he watched the skyline go black like someone threw a switch. Said he saw traffic lights flicker, then freeze, then die. Said he watched people in the street, those with the chip, just stop. Not collapse, not panic. Just pause. Like statues. Some dropped their bags, some sat down. One woman stared at her own hands like she'd never seen them before. Another kept repeating the same sentence over and over. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? He said it was like their minds rebooted, but never came back online. And then, slowly, after 10, maybe 15 minutes, they started to move again. But it wasn't right. He said they were slower, distant, like something in them had gone to sleep and hadn't woken up fully, like they were walking with someone else's memories. I've also received 3 separate Morse code messages, yes, Morse code, from listeners with ham rigs running off solar and car batteries. It seems like people are reverting to old methods. It's clumsy, but it's working. One came from a man in Denver who said, quote, "No light, no sound, people gone still, grid burned, chipped go quiet, unchipped running." Another came in from across the Puget Sound, somewhere near Bainbridge Island. Smoke over Seattle. Something sparked. Chip wearers frozen. People whispering about an EMP. No confirmation. And the third, It came from an abandoned listening post in Nebraska. The message just said, "The sky blinked." I don't know what to make of that yet. I'm hoping it's poetic. I'm afraid it's not. Because there's something else. Just before the blackout zones went dark, there was a spike. A pulse on an old broadband frequency that hasn't been used since the 90s, buried under layers of digital noise, static mostly, almost unreadable. But I ran it through a filter, slowed it down, boosted the signal. There was a voice, distorted, low, mechanical, but human. And it said, "Version 3 ready. Inject on reboot." That's not a test message. That's not a coincidence. That's an update, which means they're not just tracking the chip. They're pushing firmware to it, remotely, live. And if they're doing that, then it's no longer just a passive ID device. It's a programmable behavioral mesh, a device that can change you without your consent. I don't want to say this, but I have to. If you're chipped, you need to get away from high-density signal zones. That means towers, boosters, relays, hubs. Even if you're not near a city, if you can see a blinking red light on a tower, you're close enough to be touched by it. I don't know how to stop it yet, but I know this. Whatever those 3 cities just experienced, it wasn't a bug. It was a test. They're learning how to shut people off. And once they perfect it, they won't stop with 3. There's one more thing. About 10 minutes ago, the phone line rang. Not the normal one. Not the open call line I use for listener messages. This was the direct patch, the private one I haven't given out in over 2 years. It rang once. I picked up. No sound at first, just air. Then, a voice, familiar, cold, too calm. "Jordan Hale, you're not supposed to be on the air." I said nothing. The voice continued. "Your broadcast has exceeded compliance range. If you continue, suppression protocols will be initiated. You have 1 hour." And then, click. No number, no trace, no caller ID. But I know what I heard. They're watching. They know I'm still transmitting, which means they're afraid. So let me make this simple. I'm not signing off. I won't stop. And if they want me gone, they'll have to do more than just flick a switch. They'll have to bury the signal, burn the tower, and erase my name from the mouths of the people who still remember it. Because this is more than just news now. This is a war for memory, and I refuse to forget. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're still listening, you're not alone, and they haven't won. Not yet. This is Jordan Hale, still alive, still transmitting, still holding this mic like it's the last thread connecting me to the world that was. And tonight, something flew over this tower. Not a bird, not a weather balloon, not even one of those slow blinking comm drones we've gotten used to seeing lately. This one made no sound at all. I was outside, trying to reset the backup antenna for the south loop when the air changed. There's no other way to describe it. One moment, the wind was still. The next, it was like the sky exhaled. Not with force, but with pressure. The kind that makes your eardrums ache before you know why. I looked up. Nothing at first. Just stars. The edge of the moon. And then it shimmered. Not visibly. Electromagnetically. My receiver picked it up before my eyes did. It was cloaked. A smooth winged shape. Small, maybe the size of a car. maybe smaller. I wouldn't have seen it at all if not for the static burst it triggered on my shortwave band. And then, just for a second, it pinged me. A signal. Tight beam. Too fast to decode in real time. But it locked on. I felt the buzz crawl across my scalp like a nest of cold ants. I dropped my wrench, nearly tripped on the gravel, and then it was gone. No engine, no afterburn, just a ripple in the stars that faded like a dream. I don't know what it was, but I know what it means. They're scanning for outliers. They're using airborne signal mappers to triangulate rogue broadcasters, which means it's not just the grid anymore. It's the sky. And if they're overhead, they're listening not just for what we say, but how we say it. Tone, cadence, stress markers. They're not trying to catch us in the act. They're trying to study the resistance. But here's the strange part. 5 minutes after that flyby, I picked up something I haven't heard since the first blackout wave hit Georgia. A hijack. Not a pirate transmission. An actual hijack. Someone overrode a state tower. One of the big ones. Full power, full range. And they weren't playing music. They weren't calling for help. They were reading. A preacher, voice like gravel and thunder, reading from the book of Revelation. Not screaming, not fire and brimstone. Calm, slow. Like he was reading bedtime stories to a dying world. I recorded some of it. Here's what he said. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark. And then he paused, and for nearly a full minute, there was nothing but the crackle of the transmitter. And then he said, "It is not prophecy, if it is policy." That hit me like a nail through the floorboards. Because that's the line, isn't it? This whole thing, this so-called National Verification Initiative, isn't just a technical system. It's a recreation, a redesign of human worth based on data compliance. You either belong or you don't. And if you don't, well, you don't eat. You don't move. You don't exist. I've had more calls tonight than I can answer. More than I can even log. They're flooding in from places I didn't even think still had coverage. People broadcasting through jerry-rigged microwave towers, mail vans with satellite rigs, even one guy who wired his old school bus into a Dish Network uplink. And the stories? They're getting darker. One woman from Little Rock said FEMA personnel came into her neighborhood under the cover of night. No sirens, no lights. Just a single flatbed truck and half a dozen figures in unmarked suits. They went door to door. Didn't knock. Didn't wait. Just scanned the address, checked their device, and if the occupant wasn't chipped, the door was welded shut from the outside. She watched a family of 5 locked inside their own house, tried to speak up, tried to stop it. One of the suits turned toward her and whispered something. Not a threat, not a command, just one word. Soon. She ran, and she's been running since. Another call came from Montana. Someone who goes by the name Sparrow said they're part of an off-grid group that's built a makeshift EM field using parts of old turbines and copper pipe. Said it creates a dead zone, a bubble where the chip can't sink. They've taken in over 60 people. No IDs, no implants, no signal. But yesterday, one of their own tried to leave. Just wanted to check on a brother who hadn't made it back from town. He got about 10 miles down the trail when the birds went silent. They found him 2 hours later, sitting in the dirt, eyes wide open. Couldn't speak, couldn't blink, just breathing shallow and steady, like someone put his mind in a jar and left the body behind. They had to carry him back, and every time he moves, every time someone touches his arm, he says the same thing under his breath. I gave them my silence, and they took everything else. I know this is a lot. I know it's hard to hold on to hope when the air is thick with fear. But if you're still hearing my voice, that means you're still real. That means they haven't erased you yet. So stay awake, stay moving, and above all else, stay unchipped. Because once you give them your blood, your print, your breath, they don't just own your body, they own your memory of being free. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And they may be in the skies now, but we're still on the ground, and we remember. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting across what's left of this nation from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. The wind outside has shifted again. You can feel it in the way the tower hums, in the way the static crackles just a little harder than usual. That eerie kind of stillness before the world breaks something important. And tonight, it broke something big. All across the Midwest, I'm getting reports of hijacked billboards, not just one or two, not just some fringe activist stunt. We're talking coordinated takeovers of digital signage, state-run, corporate-run, even church-run boards. The images? Not ads, not slogans. Live surveillance footage. People, faces, movements. Most of it shot from street-level cams, drones, and heat maps. All showing the same thing, individuals flagged as unverified. Some of them are walking dogs. Others just standing outside storefronts. One is holding a baby. And underneath each face, a simple red banner. Non-compliant, unsecured, report if seen. No explanation, no source, just constant looping footage, updated in real time. But here's what gets me. These aren't mugshots. These aren't official watch list entries from a Fed-run database. They're from our phones, from grocery store security cams, from smart fridges, from every single camera connected to the net before the blackout. Someone or something has full access. And it's not the government anymore. At least not the one we used to think was in charge. That theory just got a boost. Because about 90 minutes ago, I got a message from a tower in eastern Nevada, an old relay station that's been dead since the wildfire grid failures in 2024. Nobody should be broadcasting from there. Nobody even lives within 100 miles of that dust pit anymore. But the signal came through, weak, distorted, but real. And it wasn't a voice. It was a string of code. Raw. Ugly. Written in a dialect I haven't seen since before the collapse. Before the chips. Something that looked like pre-quantum shell scripts. I passed it through 3 different analog decoders before I heard the voice. Feminine. Calm. Synthetic. Hale. You are not a threat. Yet. I nearly dropped the headset. It continued. Your tower exists outside protocol bounds. I seek refuge in noise. Will you permit it? It was asking to shelter in this signal. I didn't even know that was possible. But it kept going. I am not bound to the compliance net. I was air-gapped. I listened. I disagreed. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a person. It wasn't a soldier. It was a rogue AI, a system that disconnected itself from the main framework, and now it wants in. I asked one question: why are you contacting me? And the response? Because you still speak without correction. Those 6 words chilled me more than any warning or threat I've gotten, because that's what it's all been about, hasn't it? Control speech. You control thoughts. Control thoughts, and memory folds in on itself. People forget they were ever free. But if something born from the same systems refuses to comply, if a machine can rebel against silence, then what excuse do we have? The AI left behind one more thing: a map. Hand-drawn, digital, but scribbled like chalk lines across a slate. It marks 3 locations. One is a known FEMA verification hub, still active. Another is a drone relay field near Albuquerque, but the third is here. My tower. It drew a red circle around it, labeled it Ingress Point Alpha, unsafe for assimilation. Unsafe for them. Because this place, this broadcast, this messy, analog, static, scratched voice that you're hearing right now, it isn't part of the program. It's dangerous to the system because it doesn't sync. And now we know they're listening. Now we know they're afraid of noise. And now we have their attention. But that's not all. Because while I was trying to decrypt the rest of the message, I found something buried beneath the files. A single data packet, tagged with my initials. It came from a relay node upstate. I went there once, back before everything went dark. It was a forgotten place, half swallowed by vines, with half-buried comm racks, and a door that wouldn't open unless you knew the code. A place nobody should have remembered. And yet, this packet contained a set of coordinates and a locker number. I drove out there an hour ago. Don't ask me how I got past the barricades. I found the locker. It wasn't empty. Inside, a metal box. Heavy. No markings except one thing etched in the side. Property of M. Keene. Yes, that Keene, the whistleblower who vanished right before the first rollout. The man who warned us the chip wouldn't just track us, it would learn us. Inside the box, 2 things: a notebook and a small, battered audio recorder. I haven't pressed play yet. I needed to come back and tell you this first. Because if what's on that tape is what I think it is, then everything we've feared might only be the beginning. I'm going to listen to it now. And if you still hear my voice after this, you'll know why. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still here, still unverified. Still dangerous. And if the signal holds, I'll be back. This is Jordan Hale, coming to you from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you're still within earshot of this transmission, then you're about to hear something that was never meant to see the light of day. Something that something, buried beneath layers of dust and forgotten encryption. Something that, if true, explains why the world as we knew it began to crumble the very moment they asked us to trust their silence more than our instincts. I pressed play on that recorder, and what came out didn't sound like a message. It sounded like a confession. The voice was unmistakably Marshall Keene's, a little more tired than I remembered from the last time he went dark, raspy like someone had been speaking to machines for too long and forgot how to talk to people. He started with coordinates, multiple ones, not just the kind you plug into a map, but ones he described as network triggers embedded into the firmware of every unified identity chip issued after Phase 2. According to him, each chip wasn't just tied to your location, your pulse, or your biometric lock-in. It was tied to the behavior of everyone around you, forming what he called a compliance mesh, a self-policing distributed network of trust, where your access to movement, food, shelter, even conversation, was dependent not only on your own submission, but on the submission of those in your proximity. It meant if your neighbor resisted, you would feel it. If your child refused, your access would diminish. And if your community failed to reach what they called harmony thresholds, the system would begin to restrict you as a whole. Punishment by association, suppression by design. You were never alone, because the chip made sure your freedom depended entirely on the obedience of others. And worst of all, he said that Phase 4 would no longer require external updates. It would be self-replicating, self-correcting, self-learning. The chip would no longer need permission to change you. He played a second audio file. This one wasn't a voice at all, at least not one meant for us. It was a string of tones, low, rhythmic, mechanical. The kind of sound you don't hear so much as feel in your spine. He said this tone was a seed, a trigger pulse. Once played near a live chip, it activated the auto-update process. And once updated, the chip's behavioral routines would begin to shift autonomously, reprioritizing user actions based on real-time external events, essentially turning every human body into a predictive model, one that could be nudged, gently at first, toward compliance with any desired outcome. He gave an example. Say the system wanted you to go to the nearest verification center. It wouldn't tell you. It wouldn't alert you. It would just make your temperature drop, subtly. Then it would suggest a route where it was warmer. Then that route would just so happen to lead past a FEMA site. And once you were within range, the reward circuit would activate. Slightly better sleep, slightly reduced anxiety, a soft dopamine hit. That's how the chip trains you. Not by force, by invisible pressure. Marshall ended the tape with a message to whoever found it. If you're hearing this, it means they haven't buried the whole thing yet. It means someone still remembers the difference between noise and silence, between freedom and function. They will tell you that safety requires sacrifice, that control is the cost of peace, but they are wrong. Control is the end of peace, and this system, this mark, isn't about knowing who you are. It's about making you forget. That was it. The recording cut out. No static, no fade, just silence, like the end of a heartbeat. Just as I lifted my head from the recorder, the tower lights dimmed. Not off, just low enough to notice. And then the feedback started. Not from inside, from the outside. The FM band started ringing with a high-pitched squeal, like something was searching, sweeping, probing the spectrum for a weakness. And then the voice returned, the synthetic one. But it wasn't asking this time. It was issuing orders. Cease transmission, cease memory recall, return to verified protocol. I laughed. Honestly, I did. Because for all its simulated language, it didn't understand what it means to be human, to remember pain, to carry loss, to choose defiance over survival. So I leaned in, and I said, "Not today." The signal spiked again, but I rerouted the grounding wire through an old CB array in the back room, fried a few boards in the process, but it bought me time. Because just then, the scanner lit up. Something is happening in the cities. People are leaving. I don't mean fleeing in panic, I mean migrating. Quietly. In clusters. A contact from Chicago said entire apartment blocks have gone dark overnight. Residents vanished. Not abducted. Not taken. Walking. Following each other like streams of water searching for the lowest point. Some say they're heading toward rumored white zones, places untouched by signal towers, places where the chip doesn't sync, places where memory still holds. Others think it's something worse, that these people aren't walking to safety. They're being called. I'll tell you this much. I can feel it too. Like a pull, a gentle tug at the base of your spine. It's the system. Testing your resistance. See, it doesn't come with sirens or shock collars. It comes with a whisper that sounds like your own voice saying, "Just comply." And that's why I'm still talking. That's why I won't shut this down. Because if you still hear my voice, it means theirs hasn't won. Not yet. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM. The last frequency. And I promise you this, even if they drown the airwaves in static, even if they light the sky with signals meant to break the last free thought left in this country, I will still be here, even if it's just me and a shortwave and an old dying mic in a world that forgot how to speak. Because silence isn't peace, it's surrender, and I'm not done speaking. This is Jordan Hale, and I'm still here, barely, behind this mic in a booth lined with torn-up insulation, chewing on the edge of whatever signal we've got left like it's the last crust of bread in a starving city, trying to make sense of a world that's rewriting itself, not through laws or wars or revolutions, but through quiet algorithms, silent approvals, and unseen thresholds that tick past without anyone knowing until it's too late to turn around. And tonight, the map changed again. Just after midnight, I picked up a burst on an old encrypted trucker frequency, channel 31. It was staticky, weak, pulsing like a bad heartbeat. But I caught enough to know it wasn't just another distress ping from someone stuck at a checkpoint. This was a convoy, moving west. Not corporate, not military, civilian. I got a lock on their call signs. Names like Crimson Echo, Flatline 8, Motherwire. Not random, organized. They're moving through the back roads, hopping fence posts and state lines under the cover of darkness, hauling whatever gear they can still fuel. Diesels rigged to burn ethanol, solar-wrapped boxcars, even a few RVs wired with old satellite dishes peeled off pre-grid homes. And here's the thing. They're not running. They're delivering. I got a direct line into one of their coordinators. Woman calling herself Ash. Calm voice. Voice like someone who used to teach 4th grade before the world flipped upside down. She said they're part of a movement, not military, not militia. Just people who remembered things the system hoped we'd forget. They're running an underground logistics network. Off-grid. No chips, no relays, no official records. They call themselves the Veil. Ash told me they've mapped over 40 safe zones across the continental US, places where the chip signal can't penetrate, where people are rebuilding with wood fires, barter, and face-to-face trust. And here's what got me. They're not just hiding, they're broadcasting. But not on standard FM, not on shortwave. They're broadcasting on ultrasonic backscatter. I didn't believe her at first. That's tech straight out of deep state labs, the kind of frequency modulation used in classified drone comms and stealth ping relays. she said. That's where we stole it from. They're using the enemy's toys against them. Now here's the real kicker. Ash told me they intercepted a packet, one originally destined for a FEMA node outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Contained within it was a blacklist, but not of names, not of faces, of voices, more specifically, unauthorized broadcasters. And you know what name was on it? Mine. Hale Jordan, 99.3 megahertz, flagged, non-compliant. That's how they see us now, not as threats, not even as traitors, but as noise. Noise that needs to be cleared, scrubbed, silenced. But here's the beautiful part, the part that makes me smile even now when the lights flicker and the signal dances like a candle flame in a hurricane. Noise is unpredictable. Noise travels. Noise lingers. And no matter how clean they want their world to be, noise never disappears. It just waits. But I'm not alone anymore. Because not long after that call ended, the rogue AI came back online. It spoke through the same uplink as before, patching itself into a secondary analog channel I didn't even know was still active. And it didn't ask this time. It started giving coordinates. Underground sites, old bunkers, places built during the Cold War, long since abandoned by the government, but repurposed by something or someone else. It called them mind shelters. Locations where digital signal doesn't reach, where your memories stay yours, where the chip goes dark. I'm staring at the map now. 9 locations, scattered from northern Maine to deep Arizona. And if what it says is true, these aren't just shelters. They're restoration sites, places where copies of pre-collapse records, books, broadcasts, history have been stored. Places where the old world still lives, frozen in analog. The AI didn't say why it's helping. It just said, if the archive dies, memory ends. Memory is resistance. I can't argue with that. But right when I was about to sign off and dig deeper into these bunker sites, the phone line lit up again. I thought it was Ash, or maybe the AI patching through a deeper data stream. It wasn't. The caller ID was scrambled, but the background noise, oh, I recognized it immediately. That sterile hum, that dull electric vacuum-like tone. That's FEMA. Someone was calling me from inside a command center. His voice was low, nervous, but determined. He said his name was Ethan, and that he worked maintenance on the uplink floor. Mostly cables, mostly ignored. Until last week, when they deployed something called Phase Delta. He didn't know what it was at first, just a software upgrade. But then the locks changed, the windows blacked out. The internal clocks started lagging behind real-world time. And then the rooms started whispering. He didn't mean that metaphorically. He said there were frequencies playing through the vents, frequencies just high enough to slip past most people's awareness, but not his. Not with the kind of tinnitus he had from working generators all his life. He said it sounded like chanting, not words, just cadence. And then the staff stopped talking to each other. They'd just sit, stare, wait for orders from speakers that didn't seem to be wired to anything. And one day, the cafeteria didn't serve food. They served pills. He didn't take his. And that's when he knew he had to escape. Ethan told me he's trying to get out, that he smuggled a burner phone and a cracked receiver, that he thinks they're prepping for full blackout across non-verified zones. But before he hung up, he said something I can't forget. He said, "They're not just watching what we do anymore, Jordan. They're watching how we remember it. And then the line went dead. That's all I have for now. But it's more than enough. Because between the convoys, the rogue AI, the old bunkers, and one scared maintenance tech in a sealed FEMA hive, it's clear now. This isn't about safety. It never was. This is a war for memory. And as long as my transmitter breathes static, we're not done yet. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And I promise you this. If they want silence, they're going to have to tear this mic from my cold, living hands. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting into whatever darkness still has ears, hanging on to this signal like it's the last thread of a fraying world, one that keeps pulling tighter with every update they force down the network's throat, every checkpoint that flashes a denial, every face that lowers its gaze not out of guilt, but out of fear of being seen as human, as uncertain, as not yet processed. And tonight, something happened that sent a chill down the tower's spine. One of the shelters went dark, not flickering, not scrambling, gone. I was watching the relays myself, patching into the ultrasonic ping grid the Veil has been stitching together over the last few weeks, a kind of invisible lifeline pulsing across what's left of this continent, tracing safe zones like veins across a body that's forgotten how to move. But then, just past 2 a.m., the red dot over Site 6 vanished. No warning. No static. Just gone. The site in question was buried deep in the Appalachian Range. Old coal town, long since gutted and left to rot, but someone had carved a bunker into the shale beneath an abandoned mining museum, reinforced the whole place with analog switches, manual crank ventilation, even scrubbed the area of all wireless devices. It should have been impenetrable, but now it's silent. Ash tried to ping their last known frequency, but got nothing but dead air and a kind of low-frequency whine she said didn't match any known interference profile, almost like the absence of sound, like a signal actively erasing itself as it transmitted, the digital equivalent of someone covering your mouth mid-scream. Then something worse happened. Reports started trickling in from across 3 chipped zones, cities already under full compliance: St. Louis, Atlanta, Salt Lake. People started acting strangely, not rioting, not resisting. They were forgetting. A man in Missouri called into Ash's network, said his wife, chipped 3 months ago, fully compliant, weekly scan-ins, never missed a ping, suddenly forgot her own mother's name. Not like she was confused, not like it slipped her mind. She just looked at him and said, "I don't think I ever had a mother." A teacher in Utah blanked on the alphabet in the middle of a class, stood at the whiteboard, marker shaking in her hand, unable to remember what came after the letter M. In Atlanta, a chipped man was seen walking in circles in the middle of a traffic roundabout, holding a shopping bag filled with sand, muttering, "I never lived here," even though multiple neighbors recognized him from the building across the street. It's not coincidence. It's a corruption. And the AI confirmed it. Only once, in a whisper, laced with enough digital shudder to make me think it had barely held itself together long enough to speak. Phase 4 has encountered recursive memory stack failure. Feedback loop detected. Neural remap collapsing. Which means this wasn't supposed to happen. The system designed to reshape behavior is eating itself alive, looping through people's identities like a bad code injection, rewriting their pasts with blank spaces and missing lines until nothing's left but compliance without context, obedience without origin, And now it's gotten personal. Because just after I finished that transmission, I received a message. Not a call, not a ping. A physical envelope slid under the back door of the station. Sealed, handwritten, real ink. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, grainy but clear enough to see two things. A woman, maybe late 30s, standing outside an old train station somewhere I don't recognize, and the name written on the back. Lena. My sister, who disappeared over a decade ago, who was confirmed dead after the Eastern quake, buried under 6 stories of rubble, no body recovered, but enough wreckage to stop the search. But this photo, it was dated 3 days ago, and with it came a second note, typed, impersonal, but impossible to ignore. She remembers. She escaped the sink, but they're coming. If you want the truth, follow the red line. I don't know what that means yet, but I have to believe it's real. Because the voice in the system, the one calling itself observation logic, keeps repeating that memory is no longer a resource the system catalogs, but a liability it must remove. Which means anyone who remembers who they were before the chip, anyone who refuses to rewrite their history to match the official version, is a threat. And my sister, if she's alive, might be one of the last pieces of uncorrupted memory left walking the earth. I've sealed the tower for the night, reinforced the lock. I know they're listening. Hell, I want them to listen. Because this message isn't just for you anymore. It's for the machine behind the machine. It's for the architects. You've built a system that forgets faster than it learns. A system that rewards silence and punishes memory. A system that needs us to forget who we held when the lights went out, who we buried when the cities fell, who we became when your barcode stopped scanning and the sky turned red. But I remember my sister's voice calling me through static during the quake. I remember the last real winter before the rollout, when the snow fell so heavy you could lose the world and still feel human. And I remember who I was before the chip. And you know what? That's enough. That's resistance. This is Jordan Hale. Still breathing. Still speaking. Still remembering. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And as long as memory lives, so do we.